Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back here to the launch pad. The moment we have all been waiting for. With almost no notice, the chopstick arms are now way into the air compared to what we saw yesterday. We've been monitoring them all morning for the last about 3 hours, waiting to see some sort of activity like we did yesterday, where we saw quite a bit of man lifts around preparing for the lift. This morning, almost no activity around the chopstick arms, and then all of a sudden they were into the air. So we are here, we are ready to go, we are live for the lift and install of the chopstick arms onto the orbital launch tower. Take a moment, like the video, share it out, let people know that the lift is in progress. I think everybody wasn't sure if it was going to happen here this morning, and then all of a sudden, here we go. So it is actually happening. We are watching the lift and install of these massive arms onto the orbital launch tower. Be very interesting to see how this installation goes, but we are excited to be here with you. As always, if you have questions, let us know. You can send those in the chat, or just making sure we share this out over on Twitter and Facebook. You can share it as well, and we will go from there. As always, let us know where you are watching from. We'd love to welcome you here into the chat. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are watching as SpaceX for the first time lifts the chopstick arms from kind of their preparation stand slowly to the top of the orbital launch tower. We're not sure exactly where they're going to be installing these chopstick arms. There's been a couple of ideas as the tower is still obviously in development and doesn't have all of its chains and cabling and everything, but we are watching as kind of the remains of Franken Crane are lifting the two chopstick arms as well as the attachment carriage. The carriage is the part that will actually attach onto the tower itself, and we are seeing those begin to lift here. If you were with us all day yesterday, we saw lots of activity around the chopsticks. They lifted it a few feet off the support stand for a number of hours. And then today, with almost no notice, the chopsticks were just suddenly flying into the air. So we are glad to be here with you. Take a moment, share out the broadcast. Also, say hello in the chat. We'd love to know where you're watching from and that you are here, that you're hearing us 5x5 as well. Nico, we got Nico in the chat. Sam, Kelly, hope the voice is better today. Thanks, Sam. It's hit and miss, hit and miss. Eva, good to see you. You're gonna go watch the Stratos V launch. Is that happening right now as well? I know there's the Nuri test flight later today in about 17 hours. We are keeping an eye on as well. Hey Waggle, how's it going? Good to see you. Good morning, Matt. Good to see you in the chat. Thanks for being here. Ustin, I hope I'm saying that right. Hope you are good. How's the journey with Lucy? Have you heard anything from NASA? Great question. We did hear confirmation that solar panels open, communications were good, trajectory was good, and she's kind of in a coast phase now. That's one of the things with these type of missions that it gets on its way and it kind of just sits there. It doesn't really do anything until it starts to prepare for its arrival. So everything we've heard is good, but we'll keep an eye on that and bring any space news updates as we hear more. So we are seeing that the chopstick arms have been raised quite a bit into the air right now. They're probably about 30 feet into the air, and they have been rotated about 90 degrees at this point. They are going to be working those. We are expecting that these chopsticks will be installed facing basically directly towards our camera, as they do want them installed 90 degrees opposite the launch site. That way, if for some reason during a recovery attempt there's a failure, the booster will fail next to the launch site and not on top of the actual launch pad and stand itself, hopefully leading to a very short delay, if any, to the actual use and functionality of the launch site. Good morning, Brandon. Good to see you. If you're just joining us, welcome. You're just in time. We are seeing the chopsticks finally take to the air for installation of the booster catching arms of the Orbital Launch Tower, or Mechazilla, the massive tower robot starting to come alive even more. You can really get a great size idea of scale of these chopsticks from this view, just compared to the orbital tank farm there. It gives you an idea of what it would be like with a booster trying to come in and fit just perfectly between those two chopsticks to land. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're watching a live view from Starbase, Texas, as we are seeing the first ever chopstick arms be lifted from their kind of support mount where they were put together. They were first each created individually, and then they were established into one large chopstick together, being lifted up towards the orbital launch tower. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the Launchpad. We would be glad to answer those for you as we watch this installation occur. We don't have a full idea necessarily of how things are going to go. but it'll be very interesting to see how this installation occurs. Also, later today, we have the second public hearing for the future of Starbase, as well as a static fire attempt. So make sure you have subscribed to make sure that you can join us for those. Christina, sorry I'm late. I sleep like 12 hours. Don't worry, Christina. I literally got into the studio maybe like 60 seconds before we went live. I've been monitoring it all morning, working on some other stuff, and all of a sudden, boom, it's in the air. It's like, oh no, we gotta go. We gotta go. That kind of aerospace. I think the orbital launch tower just wants to eat some sushi. Maybe. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a nice sushi lunch? Gonna have it right in time. Sam Kelly, it's gonna be a long day. It is gonna be a long day, but it won't be too bad. It'll be nice. This is gonna occur now. Have a nice little break in between, and then be back for that public hearing later this afternoon, which will go right into our static fire testing, like we had on Monday. So it'll be good. I think will be really exciting to hear your guys' thoughts, comments as part of the second public hearing, and go from there. Is the road closed today at 10 a.m.? I believe there was a. We'll double check here. I believe there was an intermediate road closure that was available, should they want it. But let me double check here. We are on Wednesday. No, so it was just from 5 till 12 a.m. today. No intermediate road closures today. They do have it double booked for some reason on the schedule, so I'm not sure if someone just accidentally copy and pasted it twice. But we do have today as a secondary date, with the primary having been Monday. But then we do have a new primary date for testing for tomorrow from 5 p.m. till 12 a.m. with secondary dates on Monday and Tuesday. But those secondary dates are for midday testing, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Hey Brandon, ooh, it's happening. It's finally happening. With no notice, boom, chopsticks in the air. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. We're keeping it a live view here of Starbase as SpaceX installs the chopsticks, or the booster catching arms. We're starting to really be able to see just the structure of these arms for the first time. We've seen them in pieces being moved over to those two large red stands where they were all put together into this one larger piece. But this is the first time we've really been able to see just the scale of the chopstick arms compared to the carriage. And the carriage is that back part of this large piece that's being lifted right now. Those very thin bars that you can see are what will actually help attach this to the side of the tower, and be what helps move these arms up and down to be able to rendezvous with the booster as it slowly descends. Brandon didn't get to watch the hearing, but read some reporting. How did it feel? Do we think the second hearing will go smoothly, or will they have to do a full review? Or they have to do a full review. They should just pull out. I wouldn't say it was a positive or a negative. I felt pretty neutral on it. 100 people had registered to speak. 51 of them didn't show up. I believe the final math we landed at, they did take a few walking speakers at the end. I believe the final math was 36 or 38 that spoke for Starbase getting its launch license. And then we had 20 or 18 that spoke against. And the ones that spoke against, there was a good quarter of them that we weren't surprised came. There was Save RGV. There was a few other agencies that we've seen fighting Starbase over the last 2 years. And then some locals, and then some people that were just misinformed on actually how Starbase operates. So I think you get that with any public hearing, especially since you don't have to live there to have spoken. Anyone can register to speak. We do have that link over on the Discord. I'm not sure if pre-registration is still open, if people want to share their feedback, but people can also share feedback in writing up until November 1st. I mean, I think a full review would be good. I think they should do it one way or another, but I would hope that they don't have that delay the progress. I think, a full review updated to match everything for Starship. Most of the review was done around Falcon 9, and now they're trying to calculate Falcon 9s into Starships. So I think even a medium review would be a good idea, but I wouldn't want their launch license to be delayed by that. Maybe they issue it for a year, subject to a review also occurring, just so they know, because Starbase isn't going to go anywhere if they get this launch license. They're building a second tower. It's just going to get busier. They're just going to apply for more launches a year. So maybe it's better to take the time now to get it done. But the 4 comments, I'd say half of them were just general SpaceX fans being like, yeah, I'm for it. And then other half were actually like locals that were really directly being impacted by it. So I think it was a pretty good hearing. Again, if you're just joining us, good morning. Welcome back here to the launch pad. We are watching as SpaceX for the first time lift the Chopstick arms onto the orbital launch tower here. These chopsticks are what will be catching the super heavy boosters as they return, and then the booster will be lifted up off the chopsticks and placed back onto the pad to be refueled and launched with Elon's goal of within an hour, which is absolutely incredible. We'll have to see if that actually occurs. Zach, I know the camera is 6 miles away, but can you move it just a little bit closer, say 5 miles or 5,200? Move the camera, or you want me to zoom in a little bit more? I can zoom in a bit more if that's what you're wanting to have happen. Moving the camera, can't move this one, but we are working on our own Starbase cameras that will hopefully be online by the end of the year. We're only able to do those things to your guys' support through Super Chats, Patreon, YouTube memberships. We're super excited that Discord is actually now launching a membership system. So we're going to be getting that online here in the next 24 hours, and it's really awesome. It makes it super smooth because that's where we're putting all our behind-the-scenes access, all of our early access, so it makes it a one-stop shop. If you join the Discord, there's also options to get your memberships, and then you don't have to try to make sure you got your membership in YouTube and over here. You just do everything in one nice, easy place. But if you do memberships here on YouTube or Patreon, those work as well. We are super easy to connect those, so whichever works best for you guys. So we have seen that the chopsticks have been rotated about 90 degrees here. Gives you a good idea of the angle of the tower. And we're expecting the crane will have to back up here to be able to rendezvous these chopsticks, as the chopsticks will be matching, from what we can understand, the actual side of it. Not the corner, but a side of the tower. But we're going to monitor and see what is happening. David, oh my god, those chopsticks look so heavy. And it'll be even more heavy when they catch a heavy booster that'll have fuel in it. Yes, the boosters, when they get caught, will still have some fuel. People were asking Elon about this. The Falcon 9 lands with about 1% of its fuel remaining, which is why when we see the few that have failed during recovery, we do still see an explosion with it. Starship's super heavy booster, Elon has said, will be similar. They don't know if it'll be 1% or less than 1%, obviously just because of the size of the booster. They might be able to get down to like 0.5% of fuel. Obviously they do need the fuel for the propulsive landing, so there is still always going to be a risk that there'll be some fuel in it, but it will of course always be pressurized like a pop can. Starship and the booster are always pressurized. Even right now, they are pressurized like pop cans. That's the only reason they are able to be able to stand and stay the way they are in their current orientation. We'll pull out to our wide shot here. You can see booster 4 in the center of your screen and S20 on the very far right here. as those chopsticks increase. But just to give you a scale, now that those chopsticks have rotated just a little bit more to their side, just look at the scale of those chopsticks compared to the boosters. They're quite a bit larger than they necessarily needed to be, but that's because it's giving them a little bit of flexibility with the booster coming down. We've also heard that the chopsticks can flare a little bit, so they can be a little bit wider as the booster comes in and then kind of slowly hug the booster while also matching the booster as it descends. It's quite the system that SpaceX is developing to literally catch a rocket out of the air. I know some people were asking yesterday why the word chopstick. It was inspired by the movie The Karate Kid, is what Elon said. The scene with the chopsticks where they're getting the fly out of the air. That's what he says. So that's why everyone kind of dubbed them the chopstick arms. Brandon, the attachment brackets look so thin compared to the chopsticks. Any idea if connecting pieces are solid, hollow versus pipe of chopsticks? Nothing directly. When we were there, we did take some pictures of them, and I can drop some pictures in the Discord a little later of the support. They do look solid. For it, they look like a solid structure versus the big pipes that are the actual chopsticks are more hollow tube. They need to be big, but they don't need to be solid to be able to catch the booster for its weight. Not that this isn't going to be heavy, but in relation to what it is at launch, it's going to weigh almost nothing when it lands. But those support attachment brackets are solid. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They're very small compared to the actual scale. But also, just look at how far they reach. You know, if you think about it, if this is the center point, the attachments go to here. The chopsticks go to here. Just that balance there. So you know they have to be quite strong. And Coke cans crumble. They can, David. That's one of the things about these. That's one reason why they are so careful when they're moving these down the road and doing the road closures, is because they're always pressurized. Like when we were there a couple weeks ago, standing there, you know, it is important to keep in your mind those are pressurized and could pop at any moment. You are at a construction site. This is a rocket development site that just so happens to be on the side of a public road. And it's important to keep that in mind. Obviously, just keep in mind, be safe. You don't have to worry about it necessarily, but being informed is important. In comparison, I heard for grasping sail these things, each chopstick arm is longer than 3 full-size U.S. school buses. Yes, that absolutely. That's a great way of describing it for scale. Having seen them, yeah, actually. Yeah, absolutely. They're massive. David, yep, they look solid and big and heavy. Yeah, the chopstick arms themselves are actually hollow. I mean, they're quite substantially thick when you think that they're the size of 3 school buses. But they do have a bit of a hollow section to them, just for the weight distribution. If they were solid, I'm not sure the tower could actually withstand holding them. But those attachment arms are very thin, and those are the parts that are going to help it guide up and down the tower with quite a bit of movement. Now, the big question is, we're not sure how far up these chopstick arms are going to be able to go. We've seen some renders from people where they go almost all the way to the top of the tower and then descend past just to the halfway point. We've seen them where they go from the top to the bottom. So a lot of monitoring and seeing what actually gets developed. And keeping in mind, this is the first time they're doing this. It's very possible the second launch tower that they build will look different. And then they could retrofit Tower 1. This is, again, a development site. This is very different from what we're used to watching in the rocket industry, where we're learning. This is the first time they lifted one of these. They know the theory of it. They've planned this lift, but now they're actually practically doing it, and they're going to go slow and methodically and make sure that they do it right. Good morning, Marcus. Good to see you. Yeah, the mystery yellow piping that was delivered. Yeah, when those pipes showed up and no one had a clue what they were, and now look at them. Kind of crazy. It is kind of funny they were yellow when we were relating them to school buses. I'm surprised they painted everything black. I'm actually curious why, if it's a special sort of coating to help with rust resistance. Obviously, being right there on the coast, they have to deal with a lot of humidity. It's really interesting to see. Build good Pathfinder, not sure I'll ever be used for a launch and catch. Suspect oil rig platforms will be used. Environmental concerns killing off ground launches, but China doesn't worry about this. It's true, China doesn't. I wouldn't say the environmental concerns necessarily are killing off ground launches. I mean, the FAA to start was offering 5 launches from the ground, orbital launches. There was, I believe, 20 suborbital. And a really important thing to keep in mind with that is eventually, yes, they want to launch from Kennedy and other launch sites for it. What we're seeing right now is Starship S-20 is an empty shell. It is not it's a Starship, but it's not a Starship of any variant that actually function. But we have 8 to 10 variations that need to be built: cargo, tanker, crew, crew moon, crew Mars, Earth to Earth, deep space cargo, moon cargo, Mars cargo. All of those still have to be developed and tested and go through the entire testing campaign, as they are going to be different. The human landing system one for the moon has no flaps on it. So how are we going to test that? It's never going to be able to do a suborbital flight without just launching it up and crashing it. They're not going to do that. So it's going to have to do a suborbital. But then the question is, you launch it, are you going to ditch it in the ocean? Because we're not just going to leave junk in space, because that's not what SpaceX does. So are they going to develop it to the point where maybe it's a semi-functional unit that can be refurbished and used for something else later in orbit? We'd have to wait and see. So 5 orbital launches a year, that's one every about 2.5 months. That's not bad when we think of the frequency of these at first. And then you have all the suborbital flights, which is where we'll be testing all of the new Starships with all the windows, all the cargo bay doors, all the everything. Originally, we were expecting clamshell doors on the mouth of Starship. Now we're going to see doors very similar to the shuttle on the side, because structurally they think that'll be easier. They're going to have to test that. How are they going to test that? Small hops. So I think we're going to see a lot of return of what we've kind of all loved in testing of all these other variants before we see big orbital flights. So maybe they don't need all the orbital flights right now. In a year or two, maybe then they fight to have more availability. And maybe by then, Pad 39C or whatever they're going to call it will actually have been developed and they'll be ready to launch from there. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but it is a Pathfinder. Elon has said their goal is to catch Booster 5 with these arms. They want to at least attempt it. We're not sure if the FAA will approve that. We're not sure if SpaceX will listen and not do it, or if they were told not to. But we'll have to wait and see. Thomas, black is more slimming. I know. That's true. It does look sleek, too. Like, if you think about it, you got your silver rocket and everything else is black, and the tank farm's white. It does look pretty modern. Christina, I want to say they're going to place it under or right above the part that's already sticking out. So you think it's going to be going right by where that quick disconnect arm is. So the quick disconnect arm goes where the booster and Starship meet, and that's where it will attach to Starship, the upper portion, and do the fueling. So you think they're going to attach it there, and is it going to go above that, or there and down? Because the booster should never, the grid fins of the booster won't ever drop much lower than the QD arm. So I'm not sure if there's a reason the chopsticks would go lower, but who knows? I've always been curious, could they do a mini booster, like half the size, for a lighter payload to low Earth orbit? Would that theoretically be possible as well? No worries, Marcus. We'll see you later. Emilio, hey, good to see you. Welcome. If you guys are just joining us, though, welcome here to Launchpad. We're watching as SpaceX, for the first time ever, installs their first Pathfinder chopsticks onto the orbital launch tower. They're going slow and steady because this is their first time doing a lift like this, and you have to keep in mind, Brandon said it in the chat, these chopsticks are the size of 3 city school buses long. So to give you a scale of these, they're absolutely massive and they're extremely heavy. So it's very interesting to see that they're only lifting it with one crane. Now, obviously, this doesn't get anywhere near the weight limit of the crane, but the fact that they're not having any other supports is quite interesting to see. They're doing a 3-point lift, so they feel obviously pretty secure on how stable it is while they're holding it. Christina, you got it right. It's got to go up. Chopsticks, yeah. Yeah, you can flood in the chat the chopstick. I didn't even know there was a chopstick emoji, but I feel like there's an emoji for absolutely everything. If you are new, though, take a moment, engage that like, subscribe button. It really does help us out. You guys have absolutely been crushing it. Yesterday, we went from like 6,800 subscribers to, you're like, we'll get to 7. You guys said that in the chat, and you went to 7,100. You guys are absolutely amazing, so thank you guys for that support. Some people were dropping in the chat 10K by the end of the year. Someone said 20K, which is absolutely crazy. But we are grateful for each and every one of you that are here. We believe space is better together. So we're glad that you're here. If you're going to be with us later today, or if you didn't know, we do have the second FAA public hearing going on the future of Starbase and their launch license. We're going to bring that to you live later this afternoon. I believe we're going live at about 4:45 Central Time, 3:45 Pacific, which is 5:45 Eastern. And we will be live bringing you full coverage of that hearing, as well as on that same stream, counting down towards tonight's static fire attempt of Starship S-20. We saw the first ever pre-burner test of a vacuum Raptor engine on Monday when we were listening to the first public hearing. So hopefully tonight we will see a full static fire test. MB, hello everyone. Thanks for live stream. Very interesting. Greetings from Germany. Thanks, MB. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. That kind of aerospace. Can't wait for... It'll be interesting to see how many people have pre-registered. We did hear that the first public hearing at its peak had 600 people on the Zoom call listening, which is great to hear that they had that many people. Sad to hear that there was 100 people that registered and only 51 spoke, and that they only were able to get 6 or 7 walk-ins in. I think there was probably a lot of interest, but I know a number of times they told people to pre-register, so I think tonight's could be quite long, as they do want everyone to be able to share, and we'll have to wait and see what's going on. Kyle, greetings from the woods of the coastal Oregon. Hey Kyle, how's it going? Oh, I love Oregon. It's beautiful down there. If you're in my backyard, Thomas, I apologize. Do you mind finishing up the leaves? That'd be really great. Thanks so much. Yes, it is, Brandon, and we got to get together soon. It's been too long. Cosmo Diversity, glad to see you again, Zach. Can't wait to see Chopsticks picking up some sushi of Martians. Yeah, eventually, one day maybe. One of the thoughts is, could they eventually modify Starship to be caught with the chopstick arms? I don't think the flaps will have enough structural support to do that, but maybe a future iteration. We'd have to wait and see what happens, but knowing Elon, if there's a will, there's a way. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment, let us know where you're watching from. Make sure you've engaged that like and subscribe button. We're watching as SpaceX lifts those chopsticks onto the orbital launch tower. We're not sure how high these are going to go. Looking at the Franken crane, actually, now thinking about what Christina was saying, they can't go much higher than where those QD arms are. So they are going to install these quite low. And then I guess eventually they will be able to ascend higher up the tower, which is maybe a good representation on how much functionality these chopsticks will actually have, that they will be able to proceed up and down a large portion of the tower. Yeah, no. Ooh, really? I'll send you a text after the stream. We'll have to figure out a time. Excited to hear about it. America is your backyard. I mean, my backyard faces north, so technically the Arctic's my backyard. But yes, I know what you're meaning. James, would be cool if something folded out of Starship to engage the chopsticks. That's an interesting idea. Could you have versions of Starship that have like grid fins that shoot out? Is that an interesting way of doing it, James? Actually, that's a really interesting concept. Great stream and cool commentary from the UK. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Love that idea. Elon has already said the Starship will have catch points under the flaps, just like the booster. I mean, those have to be some big catch points, though. Like, unless he's just going to do, like, big rods that come out, because, I mean, maybe it doesn't need as much support as the grid fins. But, that'll be interesting to see. That kind of aspect. Does anyone know how many were for and how many were for against? Let me find that actual number. I do have the official number from what we saw here. So there were a breakdown. 57 people spoke 12 people spoke that were locals. 3 locals were in support. 9 were actually against. We had 8 not local people speak. That were 6 in support, 1 opposed, and 1 was neutral / conditional support. And then there was 37 people that spoke that it wasn't clear if they were local or not. So 27 of those unclear where they were from people spoke in support. 5 people spoke against. 1 person was neutral, conditional, and 4 people, it was unclear if they were a positive or a negative. So altogether there, we were looking at 36 in support, 15 opposed, 2 neutrals, and 4 that were unclear. So it'll be very interesting to see how many they can squeeze in there this evening. America's more like the foundation walls to Canada's roof and weather vane. That's a new description. I like that one. Cosmic Diversity, I've been thinking that if some heat tiles will fall during the lift, the chopsticks of S20 nor S21, I don't think it'll fall. Yeah, maybe. It'll be interesting to see. The 2 Crazy Marys. I wonder if they'll be back. I do know a few people said they were registering to speak at both so they could have more time. We'll have to see. I'm not sure if Dan Elton's in the chat here today, but he was with us in the chat quite often. He spoke during the first public hearing and then came right back into the chat. He was in the chat before, spoke some really great words and stuff. So we're excited to hear. If you were in the chat, let us know if you're planning on speaking tonight. We'll be listening in live, uninterrupted. So once the hearing starts, the only time that I'll be cutting in is when they're introduced, like calling out the next 5 names. And then we fully listen into that hearing so we can hear the uninterrupted comments from some of the people sharing. Well, from all the people sharing. I think it's an important part of the history of the future of Starship and Starbase and needs to be documented. Otherwise, it's going to be really forgotten on where did people stand. Now, keep in mind, we're only going to hear from maybe 50, 150 people maximum during these 2 hearings. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people submitting written support, and I'm sure hundreds writing support against. But it's important to have all that information. Absolutely, March. We're excited to be launching some new cameras also by the end of the year, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Drew, the last thing I heard, the grid fins aren't what the booster is going to be caught from. There are some small lift points underneath them. Interesting. So they're going to have something different. I hadn't heard that. I'll have to take a look at that. The guy who actually connects the chopsticks to the tower is out sick today. Now they're just going to sit there all day. Let's hope not. Now I think what they're probably doing is having a lot of people going up into the tower. Anytime they do a major lift, they clear as many people as they can out of the launch site. So I am suspecting now that it's up and stable, they're now like, okay, let's get all the people back in the tower that we need there to actually attach it. Because I think this attachment's going to probably take a couple of hours. And I think that's why we didn't end up seeing it last night. They canceled the road closure so they could continue working on the chopsticks. And then I think they just looked at the time with the sun and were like, let's do it tomorrow morning. But it'll be very interesting to wait and see. Take a quick wide shot of all of Starbase here, just to give you a sheer idea of scale. Absolutely incredible, just the size of the tower. Keep in mind, this tower didn't exist 7 months ago. I believe was the first segment, so very rapid development, especially when you think of the scale of this. This is a 30-story, 28-story tall tower. That's absolutely massive. Drew on the tour from Everyday Astronaut, Elon talks about it. He said catching them from the grid fins may be a good option that he would think about. Okay, I'll have to rewatch that. I know I watched it once before it came out, so I'll have to watch it again because I know we were watching it while we were live streaming while we had early access to watch. So we'll have to double check onto that again, but that would make sense. I mean, I'm not sure you would want to necessarily put that support onto the grid fins, because then you're going to have to make the grid fins way more substantial than they necessarily need to be, where it might be easier just to put a smaller rod that would be able to kind of retract or permanently be out to catch it. So it'll be interesting to see. James, are these your cameras, TLP? So this camera is thanks to our friends over at S Padre right now. We do have a couple people we've partnered with locally. They'll do cameras live for us for some of the bigger stuff when it is occurring. So friends like Jessica Kirsch, Space News Pod, and a few others where we're partnering and collabing together. But we are working on launching our own 24/7 Starbase cams for the launch site and the build site. We're hoping to have those up online by the end of this year. We're only able to do that thanks to your guys' support through YouTube memberships and Patreon. We're going through budgeting right now of what's the best equipment that we can get. And we have some really amazing equipment options that would be really incredible to have. A really great view location as well. We'd be excited to release that to you guys, with possibly even the ability that we could do streams where you guys in the chat say what you want to look at and basically move the camera. So lots of things we're looking at thanks to your guys' support, but we're hoping to have those online, at least 2 by the end of the year, and then we're also working on a few other ones for early next year, and then hopefully grow from there. Obviously, here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire explorers of tomorrow. We think explorers could be here on Earth or up in space, but obviously our name, the Launchpad, we'd love to have cameras on launch pads around the world so you guys can see full raw views of that. So we are working on seeing options for Kennedy Space Center and other launch sites as well. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. So you can see they've kind of come to a halt in their lifting process here, I believe. I'd say they're probably about halfway to the tower where it's going to go. It is lined up with the corner opposite of us. So we thought it would be installed 90 more degrees than it is. So it is being installed, if you're thinking of the tower right now, that the point facing us is 6 p.m. on the clock. You got 12 and then 3 and 9. So the 9 is the one pointing to the left of our screen. It looks like the chopsticks are being installed on the 9 o'clock facing direction rather than the 6. And then the quick disconnect arm faces kind of 11 and 12. So we'll keep an eye, see if they rotate it anymore, but currently that is its orientation. Thomas, a GoPro on a balloon. We've been looking at that for a few different things. We have been looking at doing some weather balloon stuff, possibly when we can do meetups in the future, and doing that as kind of a community get-together, doing some weather balloon projects. We already have the people to do it. We're just waiting for it to be the ability to do it, and go from there. Dale, enjoy your contact. Thanks for being here, Dale. Appreciate it. David, Elon the Magician. And now for my next trick, I shall catch a great big super heavy 30-story booster with a big super heavy chopsticks and put it on a big old launch tower. It's true. It's true. A 24-hour TLP stream. Well, there'd be... Right now, we have 4 in progress. We'd have 4 streams. 3 to 4. For Starbase, we are looking at least 3 if we go online the way we think we're going to go online right now. So lots of details coming soon. Our hope is also that we'll be able to release it to our behind-the-scenes community. Obviously, those of you that are supporting us $1.99 a month on YouTube or Patreon. Our hope is we'll be able to bring that camera online for you guys for a couple weeks in advance. So something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, our hope is to have a number of cameras online, a couple cameras this year, and then a number more next year, as there's a lot of launch sites around the world, a lot of test sites around the world that we'd like to do, and we'll go from there. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. Let us know where you're watching from. We love answering your questions here, so you can send those in the chat, and we will continue answering those as we watch SpaceX very slowly attach the Chopstick arms to the orbital launch tower here for the very first time. If you're new, also make sure to take a moment, engage that like and subscribe button. Really does help us out. Crazy goal is 7.5k subscribers by the end of the month. We'll see if we can get there. You guys have been smashing it lately, and we're so grateful for each and every one of you for being here. David with the grand finale being that the tower falls down, the whole launch tower goes into... Hopefully not. If that tower comes down, we're in an apocalypse mode. It is very strong. That tower should not move anywhere. If anything, if we ever see a failure, and I'm not going to say if, when we see a failure at the launch site here, whether it's with this tower or the second tower that they're going to be building next year, I think we could see damage to the tank farm without question. I think we could see damage to the actual launch stand, or the pad, or the mount, whatever you want to call it. I think we could definitely see damage to that for the water deluge system, for the piping. Depending how bad a booster recovery goes, maybe we could see issues to the chopsticks or the quick disconnect arm. But the tower, I don't think we'll ever have an issue with. But I think everything else, there could be an issue. My mind is, great, here's the tower, we're bringing the booster. Oh no, we missed, and it turns 90 degrees. And you have this booster that just smacks sideways over the chopsticks and is now just hanging out, wrapped around the chopsticks. It'd be really funny, but really sad. It rotated again, I believe. A little bit, but not a lot. Still pointing towards that 9 o'clock angle. I want to see the chopsticks doing a demo of the lifting of the rocket. I definitely think that's something we can see. I don't think we'll see it with Booster 4. I think that's what we'll see with Booster 5 as part of the testing campaign. If you go back 5 minutes or so, it moved a little to the right from this perspective. So it is very slowly progressing towards the tower. If you watch where the mount is for the, like the yellow crane in the orbital tank farm, you can see it slowly growing a little space there. Jack, confess I damaged the tower driving a Walmart cart into the tower the other day. Oh my. David, I love your commentary. It'll be great to have a burger and a couple of beers and have a good laugh about all this one day. But I'm in the UK. Hey, there's a lot of reasons why we want to come out to the UK. There's a couple spaceports getting developed out there. Virgin Orbit's doing a lot out there. So don't write it off. Our hope's to be out there. We know there's a lot of development happening in England, especially, it seems, with Spaceport Cornwall. and just kind of that whole kind of northern Europe region, they seem to be looking at quite a bit of development. So one day, David, we will be out in the UK, and our hope is we'll be in a world where we can do some meetups. We were hoping to do one down in Brownsville and Starbase this last time we were down there, but we were only there for 4 days, so we just didn't have the time to fully arrange it. And let's be honest, we were just overwhelmed actually being there for the first time and trying to take it all in. But one day we will make it happen. Jack the Tower came out of nowhere. Right, Jack. Whatever you say. David, hey, and they move their big toe to the left. We have a... And as they move their big toe to the left, yes, we have a lift. It is moving, slowly but surely. The crane is very slowly kind of backing up and turning at the same time to keep it kind of level with the tower. Really nice thing with the way the tower's laid out where these cameras are is we always get a nice side panel of the rocket on the pad and on the chopstick arm. So we'll always have a good view. Won't be hidden behind the tower. I know a number of other views that are out there right now. Anytime something's on the pad, it's hidden behind the tower and you can't see it. Yeah, not as good as a Starbase would be out there. Not yet. One day you'll get a Starbase. I think they'll build one by Dover. Pete, love the show, bro. Thanks for all the coverage you've committed to. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here in the chat. Good to see you. Appreciate the support. Yeah, we're only able to do this because of you guys. We started this January 1st. That's what's incredible to me. January 1st, and you guys have absolutely blown out of proportion the goals. We're doing things we had on our dream board of year 2 and 3. So we're excited to see what 2022 has in store. We know we've got some big plans for that. So excited to share those in the near future. If you aren't yet on the Discord, take a moment, consider joining. It is totally free to do so. We were doing a bunch of work on the Discord last night, doing some tidying and cleaning, and we are going to have a YouTube video dropping sometime in the next week or so. That's going to give you a full guide to the TLP Discord and community server, so you can kind of have an idea how everything's laid out, what communications, get a sneak peek into some of the channels that maybe you won't see if you're not a member, and things like that. But Discord is free. We've always strived to have at least more than half of our server available for free, so that link is in the description, and we'd love to invite you to join that if you are interested. I know some people are hanging out in live comms earlier today as well. It's great to see all the GSE tanks and shells covering them. Feels like we've almost read a significant chapter. Really exciting book or thrill. Yeah, absolutely. We're actually seeing parts of Starbase completed, or at least visually complete. Obviously, there's a lot of piping and stuff still to do in testing, but we're actually seeing some of these big milestones of Starship and Starbase's future come together, which is really exciting to see. And then we get to see them do it all again when they build a second tower right next to this one, which will be really great because we now have an idea of what everything will look like. So we'll be able to have a better timeline, and we'll get to be here live again for the lift of each section, the installation of the quick disconnect arm, the chopsticks, and get to live through it again. And then eventually we're going to get to watch one of these be built over at Kennedy Space Center. Question is, can we get a live camera out there? We're working on it. We're trying to see if we can get that approved for down the road, because that'll be amazing to watch be developed. So make sure to stay tuned for that. They were hanging out in live comms, but every one of them had their mics muted. Excuse me. I know there were a few people muted there yesterday. Marcus and I were doing some behind the scenes, but we did see you all in there. You guys are always welcome to join in on the live comms or the gaming comms channel over on Discord with it. If you don't want to talk on mic, that's totally fine. That's why we always have a chat version. But then you can still be in comms hearing other people talk and then respond with the chat. With it, I know I see Saturn V's in the live comms right now. With it, we're working on making it so we can have both open at once while we're streaming. So hopefully we'll have that set up here in the next little bit. But we can definitely see over the last 5-10 minutes that Chopstick slowly making its way against the tower. Right now, I'd say it's probably about 10 feet, 20 feet off the actual tower itself. So this is going to give us a very good idea of the actual kind of final look of what the Chopstick arm will look like. That'd be amazing. A nuclear starship? That'd be interesting to see. Absolutely. I love seeing that like all these spaceports are coming online. I think that's huge. Even the fact that some of them are just starting with Virgin Galactic or Virgin Orbit or things like that. Virgin Orbit's already designing their second generation of their plane launch system. So instead of dropping it from under the wing, it's actually going to deploy from on top of the plane. Almost like how the shuttle was carried in the early tests. That's how they're going to launch the rocket off the top. They're developing that right now. And it's a start. We're seeing these spaceports develop all around the world, and having these new spaceports is what's going to inspire the next generation to dive into the different industries that can go into anything aerospace and kind of go from there. So it's pretty exciting to see. Finally, we're seeing the space industry pick up. We're seeing the other industries recognize that and be like, hey, we want to get involved too. That is awesome to hear, Marcus. Jameeth, welcome to the Discord. Great to see you in there. Thanks for being a test guinea pig for us without even knowing, too. We did some changes to the Discord, and we're glad to see that everything is working. But thanks for joining. Great to see you. I'll be hanging out in live comms a little bit after the stream here in advance of tonight's stream. Thomas, I heard border agents wouldn't let you back into Canada with your fake rocket launch story. No, they let me back in. They were pretty good to it. They didn't want to let my friend back in, but I think that was because they're like, wait, you did what? You flew to Texas to stand up, like take out of concept SpaceX and being a fan of SpaceX. How crazy does these next few sentences sound? So where did you go? Oh, well, I flew down to Texas, drove 5 hours, parked on the side of a highway, looked at a construction site for like 8 to 12 hours a day, slept at a hotel, did that again for 3 days, drove 5 hours, went to a museum, and then flew home. Oh, what construction site were you seeing? Well, they move a lot of big tin cans and stuff around. They're building rockets. Oh, yeah, where are they sending these rockets? The moon and Mars. Tell me how crazy that sounds if you had no clue this was actually happening. I mean, it sounds pretty funny. I normally have some pictures spooled up on my phone and stuff. I was like, you want to see? The guy's like, sure. So we had different guys check us in, but... Charles, one planet. We are one planet. We're one species. We are all human. We are one species. And I think that's going to be a really beautiful thing in the next, couple years as Starship, the moment we have people living on the moon, even semi-permanently, or permanently like the ISS, but especially when we get those first people on Mars, the immediate concept shift of the entire planet is we are now multi-planetary species. So now the question isn't where are you from, it's, I'm from Earth. Theoretically, that's, if you boil it to the highest thing, we become a multi-planetary species. And a lot of those walls and borders of division, even if it's just concept, do start to come down. And I'm really excited for that because I think that's where a lot of our problems stem from is just division. And I think when we go to the moon and go to Mars and we go together with SpaceX, we'll hopefully see a lot of impact here on Earth as that concept shifts to we are all human, let's love and support each other. Jack Hoffman, something is happening. They have lifted the chopstick arms. Right now it doesn't look like it because they're kind of just hanging there. But those chopsticks originally were on the ground. They're now up in the air and being attached to the orbital launch tower. Brant, check the behind the scenes. Oh, I totally meant to message you yesterday. Whoops, my bad. Yes, I will totally message you today, Brant. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of editing on the site and doing some testing and seeing what we can and can't do with it. So we'll see if we can get something to work for this year. I still have to do the testing of those sealants and stuff to see what we'd actually want to do to finish it. Christina, so we got 1 or 2 people on the tower doing something. Makes sense to me. I think many of us made a similar trip. Yeah, it's totally similar. It's totally normal. Yeah, so they got some people on the tower. I'm not sure how many, but they're definitely going to have a few people on there slowly attaching this thing to the tower. Hey, the Pentagon and the U.S. Navy have admitted to they've seen UFOs. They've admitted that there's been unidentified flying objects. Seeing a UFO and what a UFO is are two very different things. David, so why are NASA and so many scientists still talking about looking out for aliens? I don't know. I think the statement that there are 2 very different but very scary cases. 1, we're totally alone in the universe. That's a pretty scary statement. 2, we're not alone in the universe. We can't deal with ourselves. How are we going to deal with other species? It'll be quite interesting to see what happens there with it. I think a lot of what we're seeing as UFOs right now is just technology that they can't talk about. I always use the example of there's a couple different tech companies, but Apple had the first iPhone, a version of it, 10 years before they released it. They had the first version of the iPhone. Why didn't they release it? Imagine where the world would be if we had the smartphone 10 years before we did. So instead of 2008, we had it in 1998 when the flip phones were in their hay. I think there's a lot of stuff that we see that we don't necessarily know what it is. Look at technology we have. We now have excuse me. We now have holographic technology. We have 3D printing technology of not only plastics, but now foods. They're working on it for skin cells. They're working on it for a lot of different things. We are in a very big tech evolution. And I would hope that our governments are further ahead than we are and have stuff that they can't tell us. Now, am I saying there isn't other stuff out there? I don't know. hopefully Starship's what's going to give us that leg up and find out. And maybe we have that moment where we pass a level that other species are waiting to contact us, and we go with the punches and we see what happens. But I think it's more exciting to live through what we're advancing through and celebrate those than live in kind of fear of, oh, let's hope we find someone else out there. If we do one day, great, let's do it. But let's focus on advancing ourselves right now. Jack, looked like the connects at the bottom according to the Spaceflight's video. Yeah, it connects at the top and the bottom, but it does look like the bottom is attaching first right now. But, I mean, this thing does just perfectly fit onto the tower. So we do have to keep that in mind, that it's just enough room. Dale, iPhone was once an iPod without cell service. The iPod Touch came after the iPhone. We're just bored going to war with other humans. That's fair. We want to meet them for the conversation value. We just want to meet them because we want to be Star Wars. How well did that go in Star Wars or in Star Trek? Brant's got a question here. How fast will the arms move? That's a great question. Pretty quickly, if they're going to be able to line up and catch with a booster that's coming down. Think of how fast a Falcon 9 lands. It's definitely something that it comes down fast. So these are going to have to move very quickly. And anyone would have to be stupid if they did not believe in the possibility. I think the possibility is there. And I think that comes down to also faith and religion and all that, and we're not going to get into that. But theoretically, is it a possibility scientifically? Yes. But also, what's our definition of alien? If you are a fan of Stargate, there's, in the later seasons, a thing called the replicators. So there's these little metal species that can form together to create anything, and that leads into a whole storyline for a couple seasons. We 15 years ago, 12 years ago, discovered a cellular creature, I think it's the right word, here on Earth in California in a lake that is literally the same thing. It's a replicator. And it's this little species, cellular level, that can replicate, split into two, and then they'll split into two. But together they're individual, but they come together and form other things. So something that was sci-fi on this whole idea, actually 35 years after it was written, is now been proven as something that's here on Earth. A little different, obviously, not little metal chips, but cellular. But that theory's there. So I think there's a lot of stuff that doesn't mean it's humanoid. Doesn't even mean it's personoid. Could be other creatures, animals, could be things like that. So I think that's where that term, just like where are we from? Oh, well, I'm an Earth person. I'm a human from Earth. I think that's where a lot of concepts will shift as we start to advance and explore more. Kirby's asking, how will they move? Hydraulics, pneumatics, electric? They will have... That's a great question. I know they're cables. I don't believe it's hydraulic because we don't have pistons that are like that long. So I'm assuming it's a mixture of electronic. We know there's the big, and we're blanking on the word, the big stuff for like the crane, the spools that move up and down like for a crane. They have those as well for the chopsticks, from what we can understand. So we're still waiting to see, but I'm assuming electric. Elon wants a giant arm on the launch tower. Just, maybe. Theory, Zach is an alien. Surprise. David, logic and the laws of averages would also just suggest perfectly that aliens exist. But I guess pretty soon we're all going to find out for ourselves, each and every one. Yeah, that's true. I think it'll be more of a via pulleys. Like, it's pulleys and cables. So, like, it'll pull it up, and then I think use gravity to help pull it down to match the booster's speed, but then it'll have tension. Vince, good morning from Brisbane. It's 1 a.m. there. Hey, Vince, how's it going? Thanks for being here. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. You're watching as SpaceX installs the first ever chopsticks onto the orbital launch tower, installing them quite a bit lower than I personally expected them to be installed at. But I guess they're putting them at their kind of bottom, which is interesting to see how far these chopsticks will be able to be lowered on the tower. If you are new, take a moment, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help us out. We will be live later today with the coverage of the second FAA public hearing for the future of Starbase, as well as the countdown to the static fire test. Into the cosmos, when will B4 go back onto the orbital launch mount? Well, now that this is installed, once this is secured, we can see that move back pretty much at any time. There's nothing else really to be installed onto the tower until they do the crane installation, which they're not going to do, I don't think, before the orbital flight test. Mind you, if they've pushed that all the way to March, maybe they will. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think maybe we see the booster go back out mid to late next week. We'll see. Great question, though. You're assuming the chopsticks will lift B4. I mean, that could be a test of it, but I think they'll just use the cranes for this one. I'm not sure B4 has the actual structures for the lift to occur. The carriage lift cables will work exactly the same as a passenger lift in a building. Oh, okay. I thought it would be more complicated than just like an elevator system, but that makes sense. James corals are replicants. They use metal to build reefs. Interesting. No, NASA, no. What you mean there, Christino? Going to take a really quick commentary break here just for a minute. Keep sending in your questions. You're watching our live view as we watch SpaceX install the first ever chopsticks onto the orbital launch tower down at SpaceX. Stay with us, keep sending in those questions, and I will be right back. Well, and again, good morning or good afternoon, depending where you're watching from, or maybe even a good evening. You're watching our live coverage here as we've watched SpaceX lift the first ever Chopsticks onto the orbital launch tower. They're now going through the process of securing these onto the tower, which is going to be a multi-hour process. But what we have is an update on some of the road closures, and sadly, today's road closure has been canceled. So we're going to update our ticker here on the bottom of the screen. Wednesday's road closure canceled. The next opportunity is Thursday, tomorrow from 5 p.m. until 12 a.m. That's a new primary road closure with some backups on Monday and Tuesday. Nothing scheduled for Friday, though. So that means today we will be live tonight then for just the hearing. Of course, we'll have a live view of Starbase through that hearing, but no static fire attempt for this evening, unfortunately. That just being updated at the top of the hour from Cameron County with a cancellation of tonight's road closure. Dock before Crew 3. Unfortunately, they're not going to dock with the ISS until November 1st. They were originally going to launch on the 30th, and everyone was really hoping that they were going to do the trick-or-treating kind of arrival at the International Space Station. But it is something that, fortunately, not this time, maybe next time. But I think it'd be kind of funny. Maybe they each wear a little Halloween costume at some point in the launch sequence. Maybe. We'll see what happens. Into the cosmos at the launch pad. BO was selected along with SpaceX for HLS. Yes, we've been diving into a little bit more information. We'll have a space news update on that hopefully today, if not first thing tomorrow, about the updates to the HLS contract. BO was not selected as of yet. But there has been some developments on the financial side of the HLS contract, with NASA being told that they will need to select a second lander, which isn't really news. We knew that was going to happen, just now they've actually been told it. The only thing is they haven't been given any more budget, really. So we're diving in to get some more details so we can actually have it all accurate, so stay tuned for that. The dreaded 30-foot ladder. It's a long ladder. It's a really long ladder. I've been wondering if after fires were an issue with the pre-burner. There was that little fire that we saw for a couple minutes underneath. It wasn't on the ship, though, from what we saw. It was on the ground. But it is a possibility that they are doing some delays for some repairs or some updates to it. With the static fires, almost every time we've had a static fire, we've seen some sort of wear and tear or damage to the test site with the material that they have, that special coating. So we'll have to see it happen. But earliest static fire tests now scheduled for Thursday. But tonight, of course, we will be live for the hearing, which we are super excited about. I think it'll be really great to hear more updates from the community on what they think about the future of Starbase and it getting a launch license. So make sure you join us for that. We're just updating that stream for it to be exclusively the hearing. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment. Let us know where you're watching from. Love to welcome you here. Also, make sure you've engaged that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out. Ben Skywalker, especially in a spacesuit. Yeah, there's some options of what you could do for a costume in a spacesuit. Interesting thought, David. Thomas, I left the boombox under S20 and the music was nice, Thomas. Awesome. Fantastic. But yeah, the chopsticks are in place. At this point, we're not really going to see much other development with them. They're just slowly being attached. So we are seeing some man lifts ascend the tower to start installing and attaching those. So I'm thinking what we're going to do is we're going to just crank up some of the tunes. We'll end the commentary portion of this coverage, but we'll keep our live views up for the next little while so you can keep a view of those chopsticks just in case for some reason they drop them. They're not going to drop them, but we'll keep this up for a little bit, and then we will be live later today for the second public hearing of the FAA. We're going to drop that link in the chat there, so you can click on that link. Make sure you open it up. We're going to be going live in about just over 6.5 hours, or just under 6.5 hours from now for that hearing. So make sure you join us then. Have your thoughts ready for the chat. We want to hear what you guys think. And we will go from there. But for now, this is going to do it for our live commentary portion. The chopsticks have been lifted and are now being installed onto the orbital launch tower. For now, that's going to do it for me, Zach, here at the launch pad. So I'm signing off, but stay with us with the live view, and we will see you later today. But for now, this is Zach signing off. See you later.
It's gonna be hard to do. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because what happens is It doesn't matter.